Welcome back to the greatest show on earth. I know we normally don't cover this type of movies on the channel, but given the fact that Mission Impossible is literally my favorite franchise ever, and its last entry, Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, is coming out soon, I felt obligated to talk about these movies that I love so much and what makes them so great. And since it's an off-topic video, it was absolutely important for it not to be done in parts. I had to make a one and done video and move on with other projects. So if this video turns out to be really long, that's the reason why. So yeah, you guessed it, we will be following the same format as any other reviews, meaning I will rate the movies individually, then at the end of the video, I would rank them from best to worst. Let me not waste any more time and dive right into it. Mission Impossible would not be the epic franchise it is today without the one that started it all. The 1990s were a crucial period for Tom Cruise's career. After being primarily known for his roles in romance and drama films, Cruise's decision to take on the role of Ethan Hunt marked a major shift for the young star. At just 33 years old, Cruise made a bold career move by acquiring the rights to the Mission Impossible TV series, which he had grown up watching. But Cruise wasn't just a star, he was the driving force behind the project. Mission Impossible was the first film produced by his company, Cruise Wagner Productions, alongside his partner, Paula Wagner. He pushed for a film that wasn't merely a reboot or a campy homage but a slick, cerebral spy thriller with blockbuster appeal. The practical action sequences, which have since become a hallmark of the franchise and grown increasingly insane with each installment, all started here. What I love most about this movie is that to this day it remains the most suspenseful Mission Impossible film ever made. And when I say that, I don't just mean it has some suspenseful moments. The entire film is pure suspense and tension. Every cinematic choice was made to build and sustain that tension. Proof of this lies in the remarkable fact that the movie doesn't feature a single shooting scene. It might be the only spy movie where the main character, an elite agent, doesn't fire a single bullet. That choice made Ethan Hunt not only more likable, but also emphasized his respect for human life. He prefers to achieve his missions quietly, without violence, without being seen.
0 body count.
We'll see.
To bring his vision to life, Cruise personally selected Brian De Palma to direct. Brian De Palma might be one of my favorite directors of the 80s and 90s. I mean, Scarface, Blowout, Dress to Kill, The Untouchables, Carrie, Carlito's Way, and so on. This man just could not miss. Yeah, he fell off after the 90s and hasn't made anything memorable in the last 20 years or so, but nothing can take away what he accomplished at his peak. For me, Mission Impossible might be his most impressive achievement. Forget about Tom Cruise's funny run or the elaborate sets. De Palma injected this movie with some of the craziest filmmaking ideas ever. The standout for me is the restaurant scene where Hunt confronts Kittredge, the head of the IMF. It's still the only time I've seen a dialogue-heavy scene shot like that. Dude was using Dutch angles in a dialogue scene where a guy is being accused of committing treason. De Palma uses Dutch angles here to disorient the audience, signaling from the start that something is off about the meeting. Long before Kittredge even accuses Hunt, the audience already feels the tension brewing. Brian was marinating our brains to keep us engaged with the dialogue.
Kittredge, you've never seen me very upset.
Had this scene been shot with a basic shot-reverse shot setup, it would not have carried the same weight. The tension is the film, and De Palma visual storytelling made sure it never broke. This kind of visual language is exactly why Mission Impossible will always be peak cinema to me. A movie with so little actual action could easily have been boring if it didn't feel tense and alive every second, and this is where De Palma's influence is vital. He brought his signature style, voyeuristic camera movements, long tracking shots, split diopter shots, and thrilling narrative twists. Interestingly, reports suggest De Palma clashed with the writers and the studio over the story's complexity. De Palma wanted a Hitchcockian thriller with minimal dialogue and maximum suspense, while the studio, predictably, wanted a broader crowd pleaser. Considering that the film had multiple writers, a third act that was rewritten during filming, and general behind-the-scenes chaos, it's a miracle this movie turned out as good as it did. The film also introduced the franchise's tradition of memorable side characters. Though later films would expand this aspect even more, the original cast left a strong impression. Jon Voight was excellent as Jim Phelps, showing how easily Ethan Hunt could have gone down a darker path but chose not to. Ethan Hunt's father figure turning out to be a backstabbing asshole is not a coincidence. They mirror each other perfectly. Phelps being revealed as the villain was a bold move, considering he was the hero of the original TV series. In fact, Peter Graves, who portrayed Phelps on television, refused to appear in the film because of the change. Honestly, looking back, it feels silly that anyone tried to gatekeep a forgotten 1960s show. I mean, when's the last time you heard someone recommend watching the old Mission Impossible series? As someone who regularly watches Akira Kurosawa movies and loves revisiting classics, even I can say Tom Cruise and the crew made the right call by doing their own thing. We also got our first introduction to Luther Stickle, everyone's favorite hacker who frankly looked more like a pimp or a mob boss than a tech nerd. Funny enough, Ving Rhames had even played a gangster in Pulp Fiction a few years earlier. I like the fact that this movie didn't just get some nerd in glasses to play Luther. Not only was he a hacker that did not look like a typical hacker, he was also black. Casting a black actor as a hacker in the 90s was rare, and even today, it's worth appreciating how fresh and unconventional that choice was. On the other hand, Emmanuelle Béart's character, Claire, is probably the weakest part of the film. Aside from one moment when she poisoned someone during a mission, she doesn't have much of an impact. She's purely there to be the love interest, and even then, she doesn't share significant romantic chemistry with Ethan or even her supposed husband, Jim. Her death feels like it was meant to land emotionally, but doesn't hit hard enough. I suspect she was a victim of the script rewrites. You could cut her character entirely and the film would lose very little. She's coherent enough for her presence to be important, but her characterization makes her the least memorable character in the movie. Jean Reno brought intensity and mystery. He was at the peak of his career and you can tell. His character, Krieger, was muscle without much brain power, nearly costing them their mission, a great contrast to the carefulness of Ethan Hunt. And of course, it wouldn't be a Mission Impossible review without mentioning the stunts. Naturally, Tom Cruise did all of them himself. What I find funny is that apparently during the rehearsal of the vault scene, the famous drop from the ceiling, Cruise kept hitting his head on the floor. To fix his balance, he put coins in his shoes as counterweight. That's funny to me. They ended up getting only one perfect take, and that's the one used in the movie. Sometimes it feels like this movie was just destined to work. This was also a time where Cruise was still reasonable, so it did not force the crew to go film the final action sequence on an actual train. No, this was one of the rare times Mission Impossible went full green screen. And unfortunately, you can kind of tell. The VFX has an edge as well as I would have hoped, but it's still good enough even after all these years. Nowadays, they usually film on location and enhance scenes digitally, which looks much better. But for a first entry in 1996, the final scene remains tense, thrilling, and visually engaging. Plus, they did pull off insane practical stunts, like blowing up an actual water tank. This is real. This is Tom Cruise running for his life. Danny Elfman's score for the film is criminally underrated as well. It took Lalo Schifrin's iconic 1966 theme and reorchestrated it with a modern cinematic edge that perfectly matched the film's tone. In the end, Mission Impossible is a masterclass in suspense. Cruise's commitment to realism and De Palma's stylistic genius set the foundation for everything the franchise would become. The film clearly draws inspiration from Alfred Hitchcock classics like North by Northwest, prioritizing suspense over flashy action. Mission Impossible wasn't just a hit, it redefined Tom Cruise as not just a movie star, but a serious producer, a fearless stuntman, and the architect of one of the most successful action franchises in history. Today, the name Mission Impossible is synonymous with insane stunts, evolving spy narratives, and above all, Tom Cruise's relentless ambition. I absolutely love this movie and I'm giving it a 8 out of 10. Moving on. Oh boy, I couldn't wait to talk about this movie. The second installment in the Mission Impossible franchise hit theaters in 2000, and this time, Tom Cruise teamed up with legendary action director John Woo. After the original Mission Impossible made nearly $500 million at the box office, Paramount immediately greenlit a sequel. By then, Cruise was at the peak of his career and had even more creative control than he did on the first film. He wasn't just starring and producing, he handpicked the director, the cast, and the overall style. And choosing John Woo made sense. Woo was on fire throughout the 90s, with iconic films like Hard Boiled, The Killer, and Face Off, earning him the title of Action Auteur. John Woo was known for stylized bullet ballet gunfights, dramatic slow-motion sequences, doves fluttering in symbolic slow-mo. Yes, that made its way into MI2. Heroes in long coats, dual-wielding pistols, and so on. Cruise gave John Woo the creative freedom to go wild. And Woo delivered the most stylized, over-the-top Mission Impossible movie we have ever seen. Unfortunately for everyone involved, that vision didn't quite mesh with the tone of the franchise. The first Mission Impossible distinguished itself from James Bond with its emphasis on suspense, tension, and intricate plotting. So when its sequel leaned into explosion action, melodrama, and style over substance, it felt off. Not terrible, just out of place. And that's the thing, I don't hate Mission Impossible 2. In a different context, I might even consider it a great action movie. But within the franchise, it sticks out like a sore thumb. That said, it might also be the coolest film in the series. The plot is absolutely bonkers. The villains are stylish in that very John Woo way. The soundtrack is heavy and memorable, and let's be honest, it still has the best motorcycle chase in the entire franchise. Sorry, Rogue Nation. This movie also introduced the voice modulator concept. In the first film, masks were used to impersonate people visually, like on the train when Ethan pretends to be Jim. But MI2 added a throat device to mimic voices, making the disguises far more convincing. That idea would become a staple in later entries. Now, let's talk about the villain. Dougray Scott as Sean Ambrose. Okay, Ambrose impersonates Ethan Hunt twice, once at the beginning and again near the end. Sure, the mask and voice tech help sell it, but what about the height difference? Scott is 6 feet tall while Cruise is around 5'8"? Not a huge gap, but it's still hard to believe Ambrose could fool even his girlfriend while pretending to be Hunt. That always felt a bit ridiculous to me. To Cruise's credit though, he often casts actors close to his height, so it's usually a non-issue. Still, something I've always wanted to point out. I think Sean Ambrose overall was an okay villain. He is the only Mission Impossible villain who seems to know Ethan and how he thinks. There's even a point in the movie where he predicts his entire plan. However, they never get that personal. In fact, they only have one interaction from what I can remember, and that's in the lab in the shootout scene. Other than that, all we get is Ethan Hunt talking about him to other people and Ambrose talking about Ethan to other people as well. And that to me is just a terrible way of building that hero-villain dynamic. That's why despite them having one of the craziest final fights in the entire series, no one really talks about it. I mean, Jim and Ethan had a mentor-student relationship. Davian and Ethan's rivalry become personal when Ethan threatens to throw him off a plane and he, in return, kidnaps Julia and so on. I'm getting ahead of myself, but when you think about it, the great Mission Impossible villains are those who felt bigger than the mission. People who we, as the audience, felt lived rent-free in Ethan's head. Sean Ambrose was just a mission. At least that's how he felt, which makes him very forgettable. Don't even get me started on Thandiwe Newton. We may be blessed with the likes of Rebecca Ferguson's Ilsa Faust today, but before that, we had to get through a couple of mediocre female sidekicks. Nia is better than Claire because, she actually does things, and the movie really tries to make her character distinctive. She's kind of a generic female thief, but there's a sensibility to her. She's vulnerable but courageous at the same time. I liked her performance. However, there's a little bit of a plot twist on her character that never sat well with me. She's introduced as a capable thief in a fun sequence set in Spain, and at first I thought she would be Ethan's partner in crime. But plot twist, her talents are basically irrelevant. Her real purpose, she's Ambrose's ex, and Ethan uses her to get close to him. That's it. The one time she gets to flex her skills, stealing an envelope from Ambrose, she fails. She sucks at the one thing she's supposed to be the best at. Her character arc is that she supposedly goes from detached to selfless, ultimately injecting herself with a deadly virus to stop Ambrose. But after that, she becomes a damsel in distress, someone Ethan needs to save. And that's just weak storytelling. She doesn't help to stop the virus or take part in the action. Her sole function is to make Ethan look heroic. I'm really glad we don't get this type of female characters anymore, because they are not just terrible, they seriously diminish the quality of these films. And considering that Newton almost dropped out of this film because she couldn't stand Tom Cruise, I wouldn't be surprised if she hated the character too. As for the rest of the supporting cast, Ving Rhames returns as Luther, fantastic as always.
Just bought these $800 Gucci shoes. That punk put a hole in my Versace.
John Paulson plays the pilot, who serves as a bit of a comic relief, and may have inspired what they later did with Benji. He doesn't get enough screen time to make a strong impression, but he's a solid presence. And of course, this is a Mission Impossible movie, so let's talk stunts. Cruise once again insisted on doing his own stunts, and they were even crazier this time around. He trained for months to perform the climbing scene at Dead Horse Point in Utah. That jaw-dropping opening? No stunt double. He even tore his shoulder mid-jump but finished the scene anyway. This guy is insane. Cruise wanted Ethan to feel more human in this movie, more romantic, more vulnerable, hence the emphasis on his relationship with Naya. Fun fact, this is the first time we get long-haired Ethan Hunt. Cruise seems to alternate hair length every other film. In the end, guys, Mission Impossible 2 is a bombastic, over-the-top action film where John Woo flexes his muscles as the auteur he is. He insisted on practical effects, took weeks to shoot end-to-end combat scenes, and even required extensive motorcycle training for the cast. The production went so long that Dougray Scott had to drop out of playing Wolverine in X-Men, which opened the door for Hugh Jackman. So, thanks, John Woo, I guess? The soundtrack also deserves way more love, scored by Hans Zimmer before he became a household name. The film embraced a heavy, guitar-driven, rock-infused sound. Metallica's I Disappear was written specifically for the movie and became a major hit. Yes, the film has become a bit of a meme thanks to Woo's excessive use of slow motion and over-the-top dialogue. But despite the drastic tonal shift from the first film, MI2 still manages a few solid twists. And while it may not be a perfect fit for the franchise, it's an authentic vision from a bold filmmaker who never played it safe. I'm giving Mission Impossible 2 a 6.5 out of 10. Moving on. After the wildly different Mission Impossible 2, the franchise made a deliberate choice to return to its roots. This time, Tom Cruise teamed up with director J.J. Abrams, best known at the time as the creator of hit TV series Lost and more relevantly, Alias, starring Jennifer Garner. Mission Impossible 3 marked a major turning point for the franchise, creatively, tonally, and behind the scenes. While MI2 was a commercial success, it was also critically divisive, often criticized for prioritizing style over substance. Many felt it simply didn't match the tone or spirit of the original film.
That punk put a hole in my Versace.
So following that, Cruise wanted to steer the series in a more grounded and emotionally resonant direction. He aimed to make Ethan Hunt more than just a cool, unstoppable spy. He wanted audiences to see the man behind the mission, someone with a past, relationships, and something real to lose. One of the key creative decisions was giving Ethan Hunt a double life. His wife, Julia, played by Michelle Monaghan, has no idea about his secret life in the IMF. This allowed Ethan to live like a regular man when not on assignment, and it was the smartest move the franchise could have made at that time. Ethan desperately needed to be humanized. If they had continued portraying him as this relentless, mysterious, all-business spy, the franchise likely wouldn't have lasted. It would have been another Jason Bourne. Known, maybe, but no one would actually care. Cruise and the creative team realized that in order for people to care, Ethan needed to become more than just a super spy. Originally, David Fincher was slated to direct, but creative differences forced him to exit. Cruise wanted to explore Ethan's humanity, while Fincher had a much darker psychological vision involving PTSD. Honestly, I'm glad that version never happened. Mission Impossible can get serious, but it should never lose its sense of fun. That's why J.J. Abrams was a perfect choice. Despite never having directed a feature film before, Cruise personally reached out to him. Abrams brought several strengths to the table: a strong focus on character and relationships, tight, fast-paced storytelling, a distinct TV-style energy full of cliffhangers, mid-mission twists, and fast momentum. This movie essentially plays like a 2-hour episode of Alias, and that's not a criticism. In MI2, Ethan saves the girl to look heroic, but in MI3, Abrams retools this familiar trope and makes it personal. Ethan isn't just saving someone he met on a mission, he's fighting to protect the life he's built outside the IMF, a life of peace, love, and normalcy. Even better, that's not what kicks off the plot. First, Ethan fails to save his former protege, Lindsay Ferris, during a rescue mission. That failure haunts him. When the next mission threatens the peaceful life he's carved out with Julia, the stakes are deeply emotional and personal. Now that we, as an audience, have seen him fail earlier in the movie, it's much easier to root for him to succeed this time, especially since we have had a glimpse of what his normal life looks like and how happy he seems to be in it. One of the best aspects of the original Mission Impossible was how difficult things were for Ethan. His entire team was wiped out. He was framed for the betrayal and had to go rogue to complete the mission. MI2 kind of moved away from that, and Ethan seemed to be perfectly aligned with the IMF. Actually, it is the only film in the franchise where Ethan works with the IMF from start to finish, which is why it's the most boring version of Ethan Hunt. MI3 brings back the essential struggle. Once again, Ethan's back is against the wall. He's being hunted, betrayed, outmaneuvered, and J.J. Abrams really seems to enjoy making him suffer. Ethan fails repeatedly in this film. There are maybe 3 scenes where he smiles, and even then, it feels forced. This is the most miserable version of the character we have ever seen. He tries and fails, and tries and fails, and tries and fails, and tries and fails, and runs and fails again and again. He always looks like he's on the verge of tears, and that has always been my biggest takeaway from this movie. In the other movies, even when his back is against the wall, he still has that confident look on his face like, yeah, I'll figure something out. I'm Ethan Hunt. But here, even when he's not under immediate threat, it looks like he's internally screaming. Gone is the smug confidence. This Ethan Hunt looks exhausted and broken. And that's powerful. The supporting cast is another strength. Ving Rhames returns as Luther, while newcomers like Maggie Q, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, and Lawrence Fishburne add energy and talent to the mix. Most notably, this is where we meet Benji, played by Simon Pegg. He quickly became a fan favorite and an integral part of the team from this point forward. But the true standout of this film is Philip Seymour Hoffman as Owen Davian. He might be my favorite villain in the entire franchise. Hoffman's performance is chilling. He brings a cold, stoic menace to the role. The way he delivered his lines with that sinister voice of his, full of confidence and malice, was amazing. He doesn't need a tragic backstory or complex motivations. He's evil, he's cruel, and that's enough. And this kind of approach to a villain almost never works. But here it does. It totally does. I love it. What makes it work is Hoffman's delivery, his voice, his expressions, his presence. The performance carries this character, but I also love how personal his conflict with Ethan turned out to be. It becomes intensely personal when he kidnaps Julia and tries to destroy Ethan's world out of sheer spite. I mean, it's something they try to replicate in future films, but they don't do it as effectively in my opinion. Davian is a sadistic man who couldn't stand the fact that such an insignificant regular spy like Ethan would even dare to threaten his life.
What I'm selling and who I'm selling to is the last thing you should be concerned about. Ethan.
So he decides to pay him back by kidnapping the love of his life and making him suffer as much as he possibly could. R.I.P. PSH, you are deeply missed. Unfortunately though, the way Davian is killed off feels disappointingly anticlimactic. For a villain that powerful and impactful, his ending deserved more. I mean, come on, this is a guy who made Ethan Hunt's life a living hell and all I get is a show? Okay, now let's talk about what doesn't work. Despite everything it does right, MI3 suffers from its visual style. It's the least cinematic looking entry in the franchise. Compared to the stylish direction of Brian De Palma or even John Woo, these films feel like a high budget TV episode. That's not entirely surprising considering Abrams came from television, but it does slightly undercut the experience. This film also marks the beginning of Abrams' infamous mystery box obsession. He loves introducing mysterious objects or plot devices without ever explaining them. In MI3, that's the rabbit's foot. We never find out what it is, what it does, or why it matters. Abrams claims that this makes it scarier, but I strongly disagree. Telling your audience, it's dangerous, just trust us, doesn't build suspense. It creates frustration. If Ethan doesn't even know what he's trying to protect, why should we care? Abrams is literally saying this object is bad, don't ask why. These guys are the bad guys, and these are the good guys, and the bad guys want these bad objects. Just believe me, it's bad. Don't ask why. It doesn't make it scary, it makes it stupid. I need to know why I should root for Ethan to get this thing. I mean, I like Ethan, but other than saving his wife, what are the stakes here? If these guys get their hands on this thing, is it the end of the world? The fact that even Ethan doesn't know what this thing is makes it even worse. And talking about this today makes me even more mad because that's exactly how J.J. Abrams ruined Star Wars. By introducing a bunch of unexplained plot devices in Force Awakens and letting the following director interpret those plot devices however they wanted, just for him to come back and undo what the previous director did because of the backlash. Okay, this is not a Star Wars video, so I won't go any further with this, but all I'm saying is that this mystery box that J.J. Abrams likes to use does not make him an auteur. It makes him a hack. I'm sorry. Alright, that was a little bit of a rant there, but that does not mean I don't love this movie, because I do. Is it perfect? No. Does it matter? Also no. MI3 saved this franchise creatively by introducing more character-driven storytelling, building Ethan Hunt into a three-dimensional hero, making team dynamics matter more and not just the Tom Cruise show. This movie also sets the tone for what the rest of the franchise will look like. In short, Mission Impossible 3 was the turning point from sleek, cool action movies to emotional, grounded, supercharged thrillers. I'm giving Mission Impossible 3 a 7 out of 10. Moving on. After MI3 underperformed, critically well received but financially underwhelming, the series was in limbo. Paramount initially planned Ghost Protocol as a soft reboot, possibly even transitioning Jeremy Renner into the lead role, with Tom Cruise fading into the background. This idea quickly shifted as Cruise committed harder than ever, performing increasingly dangerous stunts to reclaim his action hero dominance. This is always funny to me because between Ghost Protocol and The Bourne Legacy, Hollywood tried really hard to push Jeremy Renner into a leading role in a major franchise, but it turns out some actors are just better in the background, and Jeremy Renner is one of them. Okay, we'll come back to Jeremy Renner, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. For Ghost Protocol, Tom Cruise teamed up with Brad Bird, and honestly, before going any further, I want to say that I find it absolutely insane that Brad Bird literally made the Iron Giant, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, and Ghost Protocol back to back to back to back, and no one ever talks about it. Like, this has to be one of the craziest run of all time for a director, right? I feel like as a society, we should talk about this a lot more. Anyway, Brad Bird was brought on to direct his first live-action film, and he did not disappoint. Bird is a genius at action choreography, character balance, and emotional storytelling, all of which he used in animation before bringing them to the Mission Impossible franchise. What I love the most about Ghost Protocol is its use of the locations. Locations are no longer just backdrops. We normally get establishing shots to let us know where the segment of the movie is taking place, then we move on with the mission. But it always feels like the mission could have taken place anywhere in the world. The location never really played a part in the mission. The first mission in the very first movie didn't have to happen in Prague. The Chimera virus in the second movie could have been stored in any lab in any other country, and there is absolutely no reason why the rabbit's foot is in Japan. In Ghost Protocol, every mission makes use of its location. We are going to Russia? Oh well, the mission is in the Kremlin. We are going to Dubai? Oh well, the mission is actually taking place in the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. The decision made every mission and every action sequence memorable. I absolutely love that. It was really in this movie that Tom Cruise showed that he was ready to do whatever he could to turn Mission Impossible into a successful franchise. Today we talk about the insane stunts he does for these movies, but up to this point, his craziest stunts was him running away from an exploding water tank. Cruise understood that he had to commit a bit more, so he went an extra mile and decided to film almost every action scene without green screen. The biggest stunt in the movie being in Dubai, where he climbed the Burj Khalifa and filmed all the scenes on the building with huge IMAX cameras. Cruise trained with Special Forces riggers and wore custom rubber gloves with sandpaper to grip the glass. Before Ghost Protocol, Mission Impossible movies were sometimes great, sometimes decent, and sometimes okay. But they were not that distinctive to the typical spy thrillers anyone else was making at the time. Once Ghost Protocol came out, people understood that Tom Cruise and Brad Bird made something special. The action felt more authentic than anything done before. The movie gave the audience an immersive experience that allowed the franchise to immediately set itself apart. This is when Tom Cruise found the winning formula. The supporting cast was also amazing. My second favorite ensemble cast in the franchise. I might have to rank the ensemble cast from best to worst as well. You know what? By the end of this video, I will rank the movies, I will rank the villains, I will rank the ensemble cast, and I will rank the stunts. Okay, if I keep going with the rankings, I might end up ranking Tom Cruise runs and his haircuts, and this video is already long as it is. Anyway, this is the first and only movie without Luther being actively part of the mission. He appears at the end of the film, but is not part of the actual mission. But thankfully, the movie makes the clever choice of upgrading Simon Pegg's Benji to a bigger role. He is easily one of the standouts in the films and the best supporting character in my opinion. Simon Pegg's ability to transform this character from a regular tech guy to the most interesting side character in the franchise is outstanding. Maybe I'm biased because I'm a big Simon Pegg fan. I mean, Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz are really unforgettable movies for me, so yeah, that definitely helped, but his performance in this movie is really great. He's funny, likable, and he just brings a lot of energy to this team. I love this character.
What I miss?
Jeremy Renner also joins the team like I said earlier. Oh hey! Paula Patton is here as Agent Carter. To this day, she's my biggest Mission Impossible crush. I honestly have no idea why they never brought her back. I would really love it if she appeared in the Final Reckoning, even for a brief cameo. I know Mission Impossible does not do fan service, and I do love that about these movies. This is in the MCU, we prioritize story over here. I wouldn't be mad if she returned somehow. I like how her character feels so alive. We went from boring agent who really doesn't seem to have any combat skill whatsoever, to a thief who serves the story but never serves herself as a character, to a cool looking spy who barely feels like a character, to an actual character. Agent Carter is the first female character in a Mission Impossible film. She's got a backstory, she's got her own goal beyond the mission, she's got a distinct personality, and all she's got going on has nothing to do with Ethan Hunt. She's her own person, she's badass, and above all, she's sexy as hell. Her physicality and emotional vulnerability was the balance the team needed. 10 out of 10 character, bring her back to me if you can. If you cannot, at least I'll always have this movie. Oh yeah, Jeremy Renner. Like I said previously, he was meant to replace Tom Cruise initially, and my god, I'm so glad it did not. I mean, he's great in the movie. He's got some funny moments with Simon Pegg's Benji, and he does incredibly well during the action sequences, but he does not have lead role potential. And I'm not just talking about his character, I'm talking about Jeremy Renner himself. Otherwise, William Brent is a good character. He also got some kind of character arc tied to Ethan and Julia, and I thought giving his character a backstory like that helped integrate him into the team in a more organic way. Speaking of Ethan and Julia, for most of the film, we are led to believe that she was killed and Ethan murdered some goons in cold blood in revenge and ended up in a prison for it. But we later discover that he faked her death so she can live a normal life. That is clearly a retcon because the double life storyline was never going to work moving forward, and all things considered, I think they did a good job kind of letting Julia fade into the background. I always thought having Ethan commit murder off screen was really weird. Not only is murder out of character for Ethan, but if you're gonna make him do it, you can't do that off screen. It would have been a huge issue in the movie for me, so you can imagine how relieved I was when I realized that things didn't exactly happen how it was described. If he embarked on a rescue mission and killed some Russians to save Julia and faked her death so she could remain safe, that's fine. It can be done off screen, but a revenge plot? No, you will have to show that to me. It's kind of a big deal. Michael Giacchino did the score for this film. He continued from MI3. Giacchino's score got bigger and bolder. He paid direct homage to the original 1960s spy theme, but layered in ethnic instruments and deeper percussion to match the global scale. He didn't do anything crazy, but I think the way he navigated that score elevated the film as well. I know Ghost Protocol is amazing and there isn't much to complain about, but listen, it might have the worst villain in all of Mission Impossible. Kurt Hendricks does not work for me as a villain, I'm sorry. He is criminally underwritten, is literally an afterthought. Oh, why is he a villain? Well, because he's crazy. This guy is so bad that he doesn't even get a single scene of dialogue. He remains the only villain to never get any scene where he interacts with other characters. The most we got from him was a university lecture on a screen. I'm sorry, he also just makes Ethan look bad. Ethan, Mr. Slick Karate moves, Mr. I kick asses even with a bomb in my head cannot neutralize a university professor? Like, that little chase in Dubai was fine. I understand with the sandstorm and all, but dude, the final fight was so ridiculous and frustrating, it nearly ruined the whole movie for me. Like, dude, why are you struggling against a senior citizen? It makes no sense. Anyway, that's my only issue with Ghost Protocol. Otherwise, the movie is nearly perfect. Brad Bird did his thing. Tom Cruise did his thing. The whole cast was great. The franchise that nearly died turned a corner and became a sensation thanks to this masterpiece. Ghost Protocol is like a soft reboot that still feels like a continuation which is a rare feat. It also encouraged the franchise to abandon CGI almost completely and be more ambitious with the stunts. It cemented Mission Impossible's place as the thinking person's action franchise with an emotional core and globe-trotting thrills. I absolutely love this movie and I'm giving it a 8 out of 10. Moving on. Oh man, this is going to be the shortest review ever. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation is awesome. 10 out of 10. Moving on. Nah, just kidding. While Ghost Protocol revealed the potential the series has, how high it could climb and how much more successful it could be, Rogue Nation continued with a winning formula. But Cruise didn't want to merely repeat the formula. Instead, he handpicked Christopher McQuarrie to direct. McQuarrie had written Valkyrie, co-written Edge of Tomorrow, and directed Jack Reacher, all involving Cruise. Their collaboration was built on trust. Cruise gave McQuarrie more creative control than he ever given a director on Mission Impossible. Apparently, McQuarrie came in without a complete script. The plot was built during filming, with scenes shot before knowing how the movie would end. The story evolved constantly. McQuarrie and Cruise would workshop ideas on set. Entire sequences were shot with placeholders for later written lines or action logic. The Opera House scene, a highlight, was originally a standalone idea McQuarrie loved, and they built the plot around it. This method was risky, but it gave the film an organic, reactive rhythm. It was constantly solving problems creatively. The making of the movie itself was a mission. Christopher McQuarrie may not have the resume of a Brian De Palma, John Woo, or even Brad Bird, but despite that, he is by far the best director this franchise has ever had. His style is very cinematic and inventive. He understands what this franchise is and what it needs. It is never easy to step into a franchise following its best entry to date and try to match that, but McQuarrie didn't just match Ghost Protocol. He surpassed it. Rogue Nation took everything that worked in Ghost Protocol and made it even better. It doubled down on the crazy stunts by having Tom Cruise hang on the side of a goddamn plane. I still remember the first time I saw the behind the scene footage of the scene and I couldn't believe anyone was that insane. Tom Cruise really decided that he would make Mission Impossible the most ambitious franchise of all time or literally die trying. Cruise was strapped to the side of a plane 8 separate times. Each take involved the plane reaching 5,000 feet, with Cruise exposed to debris, wind, and cold. What's even crazier is that it's literally the first scene in the movie. Like, it has nothing to do with the plot, it doesn't serve the characters, it doesn't even have any fight or huge set pieces. It's a scene that solely exists to let you know that this movie is awesome and you should be excited that you are currently watching this. Then they went and outdid themselves in the same movie with the underwater scene in Morocco. Cruise trained with Navy SEAL breath-hold experts, held his breath for over 6 minutes to film the continuous sequence. The rotating turbine was physically built underwater, no CGI stand-in, all real-time movement. They even had to pause filming multiple times due to risk of disorientation and hypoxia. Then you have the Vienna opera sequence, a scene inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's The Man Who Knew Too Much. It is definitely great to see the franchise go back to its Hitchcock vibe, something we had not seen since the very first film. Filmed in the actual Vienna State Opera, this scene, just like the major action sequences in Ghost Protocol, makes full use of its location. At this point, Cruise and his crew really understood that if they want a scene to stand out, they need the location to mean something, and for the characters to participate in a meaningful way. And of course, they used the opportunity to make the new character shine. Ilsa Faust, played by Rebecca Ferguson, is to this day the best female character in the franchise. It was the first time for a woman to be written as Ethan's equal. Actually, it's the first time any character, male or female, to be written as Ethan's equal. She's smart, badass, capable, strong, and extremely likable. Rebecca Ferguson's acting is outstanding in this. She's great in all the Mission Impossible movies she's been in, but her performance here remains the best ever. She's introduced as this mysterious woman who looks fearless and moves like nothing could touch her. But as the movie progresses, you get to see the vulnerable side of her character. What I also love about her character is that she's got an arc on her own. She's a complete character. It was a brilliant choice to not make her an IMF agent or someone from Ethan's team, because her having her very own agenda added a lot to her character. Looks like they finally figured out why the audience never cried to have Jeremy Renner back. Ethan Hunt is the IMF. Anyone who works with him is a sidekick. If you want an equal, you need someone from another organization with a different agenda. And the fact that the first ever character to get such a treatment is a woman is really amazing to me. They also brought back Luther and Kate Benji and Jeremy Renner and introduced Alec Baldwin as the head of the CIA. I was really sad that Agent Carter didn't get to return, but that was the correct decision. She's way too similar to Ilsa. It was never going to work. Benji and Luther are amazing supporting characters and are great as expected. Jeremy Renner has a significantly smaller role, but is alright, I guess. Rogue Nation also introduces a new villain, Solomon Lane, and he is the best villain since Owen Davian. I still prefer Davian as a presence, but as a character, Lane is far better written. He's like a combination of all the villains up to this point. He knows how Ethan thinks, just like Sean Ambrose. He takes his rivalry with Ethan personally, just like Davian. He is as crazy as Kurt Hendricks and has as much experience in the world of espionage as Jim Phelps. To me, he's always felt like a final boss, and I just love the fact that the franchise treats him like one. He's cold, intellectual, and fanatically logical. Sean Harris, the actor, was reluctant to take the role and almost left. He didn't want to be a traditional evil villain, so Macquarie let him rewrite his own dialogue and create Lane's dry, disturbing calm. Lane barely raises his voice, yet radiates control. A deliberate contrast to the other villains from other action films. The score is also one of my favorite in the series. Composer Joe Kramer leaned heavily into the original 1960s themes. He used the Mission Impossible theme as a motif woven through the entire movie. The orchestration was designed to mirror the film's emotional tone, not just adrenaline spikes. I love how when Ilsa's loyalties shift, her scenes begin to subtly incorporate Ethan's musical motif, suggesting trust before it's confirmed. The movie's action sequences were big and ambitious, but they never felt over the top. They helped progress the story while keeping the audience engaged. They were obviously shot on location, but Macquarie uses even less CGI than Brad Bird did in Ghost Protocol, pushing for realism in every action sequence. Actually, the anti-CGI stance led to major reshoots when some third-party VFX companies couldn't deliver the realism Macquarie demanded. It is safe to say it was all worth it. The movie looks amazing. The best-looking Mission Impossible movie up to that point. In the end, guys, Rogue Nation isn't just another spy flick. It's a high-wire act of storytelling without a safety net. The fact that it worked and even elevated the franchise is a testament to Tom Cruise's obsessive physical commitment, Macquarie's problem-solving skills, an ensemble cast that brought depth to genre archetypes, and a film production that thrived on improvisation, not control. It marked the moment Mission Impossible went from a dependable action franchise to a genre-defining daredevil event cinema. It's not just a great Mission Impossible movie, it's one of the best movies ever made. I'm giving Mission Impossible Rogue Nation a 9 out of 10. Moving on.
Ah! Look out!
Mission Impossible Fallout, the very first modern Mission Impossible film. Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation are both amazing films, obviously, but they both carry elements of their predecessors in terms of how they feel, their story structure, and how events unfold. Rogue Nation distinguished itself with a reinvented style thanks to Christopher McQuarrie's fresh vision, McQuarrie pushed this vision further with a slight change in tone with a more modern touch. And the result of it is what I consider to be the best Mission Impossible to date. After Rogue Nation's success, Cruise and director Christopher McQuarrie agreed to do something no MI film had done: directly continue the story from the previous installment. McQuarrie not only returned as a director, a first for the franchise, but also chose to write around character motivation rather than a plot gimmick. The movie wasn't driven by a MacGuffin, it was driven by Ethan Hunt's morality and the consequences of choosing to save one life versus millions. Yes, they are chasing after the plutonium, but it's not what drives the plot. They are not in a race to find the plutonium. The villain's motivation is revenge against Hunt. Ethan's main drive is shaped by his morality, and the movie's main objective is to challenge how Ethan thinks. You watch Fallout not just for the spectacle, but to understand how Ethan Hunt strategizes in real time, especially when the stakes get personal. Fallout explores Hunt as a man who chooses to care even when it's a tactical liability. He is no longer a blank action cipher, he is a burdened leader with a soul. The movie chooses to show that empathy is not a weakness. This just proves further that McQuarrie really understands this character and this franchise overall. McQuarrie approached the script with a focus on character-driven storytelling, aiming to explore Ethan Hunt's moral compass and the consequences of his actions. The editorial team emphasized rhythm over flair, ensuring that each action sequence served the narrative and character development, and it shows. Issa Faust returns, the first ever female to do so. She was brilliant in Rogue Nation and instantly became a fan favorite. She was also a character created by McQuarrie himself, and you can tell how proud he is of what he managed to achieve with her. This time around, Ilsa is not just Ethan's equal. They have a bit of a complicated relationship. She's torn between her allegiance to the MI6 and Ethan. Once again, the strength of her character is that she feels completely detached from Ethan. She's got her own agenda, of course, but also her own arc. The fact that both her and Ethan have a personal connection to the main villain in different ways just tells you how brilliant the writing has been for her character. It's hard to describe it, but she feels slightly more than a side character. She is a big addition to this franchise and I love her. Alec Baldwin returns as the head of the IMF this time around. Angela Bassett joins the cast as head of CIA Erica Sloan, but the biggest addition to the cast is obviously Henry Cavill as August Walker. Introduced as a CIA operative, Cavill's character brings a formidable presence and physicality to the film. He only appeared in one movie, but I can confidently say he's one of the most iconic characters in the franchise. I mean, his famous arm reload, iconic mustache, and his undeniable chemistry with Tom Cruise, everything was so perfect with his character. One thing I've always found fascinating about Henry Cavill is that he seems to never be able to build real chemistry with any of his female co-stars, but for some reason, he works perfectly well with any other male actor. I personally think he's just not the romantic movie type of actor. He doesn't have the range for it. He also works better in roles where he gets to be all broody like The Witcher or Fallout. That's the reason I think even his Superman didn't work. Every smile he gave out felt fake, and anytime he tried to act likable, it never felt authentic. And whenever he tried to look badass, he ended up looking like Injustice Superman instead. In brief, Henry Cavill has the face, facial expression and mannerism of a villain or anti-hero. As an actor, he doesn't have the range to play anything else without it looking weird and unnatural. That's why he was a brilliant choice for Walker. He got to be himself without having to force himself to be romantic or likable. One of this movie's best qualities is its cinematography. It's got some of the best action sequences I've ever seen in my life. The authenticity of every scene, the pacing and rhythm of it all, and how every action sequence elevates the stakes of the mission, the whole thing is just absolutely brilliant. Also, I just want to retract the statement I made earlier. Mission Impossible 2 doesn't have the best motorcycle chase in the franchise. That title clearly belongs to Fallout. So I'm sorry John Woo, but Christopher McQuarrie wins this one. The whole Paris section is just simply breathtaking. The rescue of Solomon Lane, the police chase around Paris, this really cool scene where Ethan saves this police officer, all of it is just mwah. Speaking of Solomon Lane, he returns, the first villain to do so. He doesn't get as much to do as he did in Rogue Nation. However, he still serves his purpose wonderfully. His personal hatred for Ant is something I like a lot about his character. It fits the theme of this movie perfectly, as his morals are literally the opposite of Ethan's. The real villain is Henry Cavill's August Walker, but Solomon Lane plays a vital role in the plot and had a great action scene involving Ilsa and Benji towards the end. I hope we get to see him in the final film. If we do not, well, I think this is not too bad of an ending for him either. This movie also introduces Alana, aka the White Widow. Vanessa Kirby brings some great complexity to this movie with her performance. Her character is not a straightforward villain. She flirts with Ethan metaphorically and literally, respects his values, but still works with terrorists when it suits her. She's playing multiple sides and doing it with elegance and calculation. She brings a seductive ambiguity. You are never quite sure where her loyalty lies, and that's the point. Unlike typical arms dealers, she operates with charm and high society grace, hosting galas, quoting poetry, and projecting a vibe somewhere between Bonne Femme Fatale and Lady Macbeth. She's awesome. The fact that this movie manages to have all these characters, most of them introduced to the audience for the very first time, and make them all work is a true testament to how great it is. In the end, guys, I don't have anything negative to say about this movie. The cast is great, the new ones like the ones I mentioned, or the old ones like Benji or Luther. The stunts are even better in this movie and even more ambitious. Tom Cruise's commitment to performing his own stunt reached new heights in Fallout. Notably, he performed the halo jump from 25,000 feet, a feat that required extensive training and precision. Cruise also piloted a helicopter through challenging maneuvers in New Zealand's Southern Alps, showcasing his dedication to realism, and even broke his ankle while performing a jump between buildings during a rooftop chase scene in London. It feels like the entire series was building towards this movie. It's a franchise that deserves to finally have its masterpiece. Rogue Nation came really close to be that, but the series really peaked with this one. I'm giving Mission Impossible Fallout a 10 out of 10. Masterpiece. Moving on. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, like it was called back then, had the impossible task of maintaining the high standard of Fallout. I still remember going to see this movie opening night and being extremely nervous. Fortunately, Tom Cruise and his crew seemed to have understood perfectly why Fallout worked, so they maintained the formula while making the interesting choice of integrating a real-life issue to the Mission Impossible universe. Dead Reckoning exemplifies the franchise's commitment to delivering thrilling action and compelling narratives. Its production showcases the dedication of the cast and crew to push the boundaries of cinematic storytelling. The central antagonist in the film is the Entity, a sentient AI capable of manipulating digital networks and information. This reflects contemporary anxieties about AI's potential to surpass human control, echoing real-world debates on the ethical implications of advanced technology. Ethan Hunt's race to find the keys that will give control to the Entity is totally in character. It also feels like a natural progression for the series. Over the years, we have seen some really advanced technology used by the IMF. It would have been really weird if artificial intelligence never came in play. Making AI the villain of a Mission Impossible movie is cool, but what's cooler is that the movie is taking a stance and is actually trying to say something. A significant revelation in the film is that all IMF agents, including Ethan Hunt, were once criminals who chose service over imprisonment. This adds layers to their characters, challenging the traditional black and white portrayal of heroes and villains and exploring themes of redemption and moral complexity. It's a great way of establishing a history for all the characters without having to use flashback scenes or an actual narrative that will have nothing to do with the plot. But what I love the most about this movie is the parental approach to Ethan Hunt's character. Ethan Hunt's unwavering commitment to his team underscores the film's exploration of loyalty and personal sacrifice. His decisions often prioritize the safety of his colleagues over mission objectives, highlighting the emotional stakes involved in their line of work. The moment he learns that some dangerous person from his past has resurfaced, he aborts the mission to keep his team safe. And while rewatching the movie, I noticed that Luther and Benji are almost never on the field with him. And after losing Ilsa, we'll talk about that in a moment, Luther and Benji were literally benched for the rest of the movie. This is not just an experienced Ethan Hunt. It's an Ethan Hunt who is afraid of losing his friends, and I love that. Ethan continues to evolve as a character, torn between duty and personal connections. His deep sense of responsibility and willingness to risk everything for his team emphasize his role as a leader who values human life over protocol. He's all about completing the mission, but never at the expense of his team, no matter the circumstances. It's something that was already introduced in Fallout when Ethan chooses Luther's life over the plutonium. And since Tom Cruise made the perfect choice of teaming up with Christopher McQuarrie again, they just continued with that idea. I feel like this will be something about Ethan that will be explored even further in the final reckoning. The movie introduces a couple of new characters, like the main villain Gabrielle and Ellie Atwell's character Grace. Let's talk about Grace first, because she's literally what I thought Naya was going to be. And I suspect that this is intentional. I think over the years, Tom Cruise has probably realized the wasted potential of such a character. Anyway, Grace is a really good character. It took me a little bit of time to like her, but I think that's also intentional. Her character is a slow burn. The movie really takes time to build a relationship with Ethan. And since their relationship is mostly built on trust, they wanted the trust to feel natural. They didn't want the character to blindly trust Ethan. They wanted her to have good reasons to do so. And for that reason, she is a little bit annoying at first. Her constantly betraying Ethan despite his constant attempt to earn her trust was justified, but the fact that I know Ethan is the good guy here makes her justified actions really infuriating. And by the time we reach the scene with the train where she almost got Ethan killed, I won't lie, I pretty much gave up on that character. And to make matters worse, Ilsa gets killed trying to protect her. We'll get back to that. It was so easy to hate on this character, but then you realize that she has a true purpose in the story. She is the emotional drive for Ethan. The mission is important to Ethan, but keeping her safe is just as important for this character who just does not want to lose anybody he feels responsible for. She helps build Ethan's character while also being a capable person herself. I love her arc and the role she plays within the team. She brings a fresh dynamic to the team. Her initial self-interest gradually gives way to a sense of camaraderie and purpose, illustrating a compelling character arc of transformation and trust building. All her annoying scenes are forgiven by the end. Okay, now let's talk about the death of Ilsa. I don't like it, but it made sense in the story. I think her death raised the stakes, and I'm just realizing that this is the first significant death in the franchise. Ethan has never really lost someone he cared about in a mission. We thought Julia was dead, but she's safe and happy. Luther and Benji and everyone he's ever worked with are all still alive. So like I said, I don't like it, but it was needed. I hope they don't undo it in the next one. It has to stick. She served her purpose when she was alive, and her death has also served its purpose. We'll miss her, R.I.P. Now bring back Agent Carter, please. Okay, before we go any further, I did not like Gabriel as a character. Now, it's not just because he's undercooked. We have had underwritten villains before. I mean, Davian didn't have much depth, for example. But what makes a great Mission Impossible villain, in my opinion, is their ability to stand out. Davian was one hateful, deranged person. Solomon Lane had a presence. Gabriel looks like he's coming out of a series about drug trafficking and does not look like a spy villain in any shape or form. So if the writing is underwhelming, the performance is boring, and the design feels uninspired, then Gabriel is one of the most boring villains in the franchise. Such a step down from Solomon Lane and Walker. I mean, even Paris was more interesting than this guy, and she had like 2 lines in the whole freaking movie. To get back to the positive, I think the movie looks gorgeous. The use of natural lighting and handheld cameras during action sequences, enhances the realism and immerses the audience in the moment. And of course, since it's a Mission Impossible movie, Tom Cruise had some incredible stunts planned out. The most notable one being the motorcycle jump, where Cruise rides a motorcycle off a cliff, transitioning into a base jump. Look, all the stunts are great as usual. All the fight scenes are amazing as always. But why is no one talking about the fact that this movie rips off the train scene from Uncharted 2? Like it's almost a shot-for-shot recreation. I mean, it's a great homage. That Uncharted 2 sequence is one of the best sequences ever put in a game, and the game itself is one of my favorites ever. I don't have a problem with the movie using that. My problem is that they never acknowledged the game at all. Christopher McQuarrie even flat out denied it. Maybe he genuinely doesn't know the game, but movies are a collective effort. I'm sure whoever came up with that idea in the first place was inspired by the game. You can't have scenarios dissimilar and claim it was just pure coincidence. I don't buy it, I'm sorry. At the end guys, Dead Reckoning is a very good movie. Not quite as good as Fallout, but still great. The movie stands out for its integration of modern themes, character depth, and groundbreaking practical stunts. The film not only delivers high-octane action, but also invites viewers to reflect on the ethical dilemmas posed by technological advancements and the complexities of human relationships in the face of global threats. I'm giving Dead Reckoning a 8 out of 10. Alright, now before we go, I would like to end this really long review by ranking some of the stuff in the series. Ensemble cast from best to worst. Number 7, the MI2 cast. Number 6, the First Movies cast. Number 5, MI3 cast. Number 4, the Dead Reckoning cast. Number 3, the Rogue Nation Ensemble cast. Number 2, the Ghost Protocol Ensemble cast. Number 1, the Mission Impossible Fallout cast. Villains from best to worst. Number 7, Kurt Hendricks, worst of them all. Number 6, Sean Ambrose, forgettable. Number 5, Gabriel, boring. Number 4, Jim Phelps, decent. Number 3, Solomon Lane, pretty good. Number 2, August Walker, badass and widely entertaining. Number 1, Owen Davian, just the best. The best stunts: the water tank explosion, mountain climbing, cable suspension, the Burj Khalifa, the halo jump, the motorcycle jump, and finally, hanging onto the side of a goddamn plane. I still can't get over this one. Okay, now let's rank the movies. If you have been watching this review, then you probably already know the ranking. At number 7, we have Mission Impossible 2. For obvious reasons, it feels out of place and just doesn't fit in the series. Number 6, MI3. Good movie, saved the whole franchise for me. Number 5, Ghost Protocol. I hate the villain, but the movie overall is really good. Number 4, Dead Reckoning. Deepens the character of Ethan Hunt, love it. Number 3, Mission Impossible. Suspenseful, classy, and very cinematic. A classic in my eyes. Number 2, Rogue Nation. For obvious reasons, one of the best spy movies of all time. Number 1, Fallout. Also for obvious reasons, one of the best movies ever made. Well, that's it. I've done it. This was really challenging, but it's also a video I've wanted to make for a long time. I absolutely love this series and I cannot wait to watch the finale. I know there are characters I omitted completely and some details I didn't get into, but that's because I didn't want this video to be 5 hours long, so please understand. If you have made it this far, you are an absolute legend and I appreciate you. If you have enjoyed this, please leave a like and a comment if you can. That will help me a lot. Anyway, I'll be back soon with my regular videos and also some other challenging projects. In the meantime, I'm going to go have a very long nap. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Ciao.